October 15, 1982, Westlake Recording Studios, Los Angeles. 2:47 a.m. The building was silent except for one room. Studio D. Inside, Michael Jackson sat alone at the mixing board, headphones pressed against his ears, eyes closed, lost in a world only he could hear. The red recording light glowed. Michael's voice filled the room, layering, harmonizing, experimenting. He was recording a song that would never appear on Thriller, a song the world would never hear, one of hundreds. Between 1979 and 2009, Michael Jackson recorded thousands of songs. The world knows the hits: Billie Jean, Beat It, Smooth Criminal, Man in the Mirror. But in studio vaults scattered across Los Angeles, locked away in archives controlled by his estate, lie hundreds of unreleased tracks. Songs Michael poured his soul into, songs he deemed not ready, songs that reveal the man behind the myth in ways his public persona never could. This is the story of the voice nobody heard. Let's establish something critical. Michael Jackson was not just a performer. He was a sonic architect. He didn't write songs with pen and paper. He built them in his mind, layer by layer, beat by beat, vocal run by vocal run. Then he'd bring those mental blueprints into the studio and spend days, sometimes weeks, perfecting a single track. Bruce Swedian, Michael's longtime audio engineer, once said, Michael would come into the studio with the entire song already arranged in his head. He'd beatbox the drums, sing the bass line, hum the strings. My job was just to capture what he already heard. But here's what most people don't know. Michael was prolific beyond comprehension. For every song that made an album, 10 didn't. For every Thriller, there was an entire album's worth of material Michael felt wasn't perfect enough to release. Why? Because Michael Jackson's greatest enemy wasn't the media, wasn't the allegations, wasn't even his failing health. It was his own impossible standards. Let's talk about the Thriller sessions. Between April and November 1982, Michael recorded over 30 tracks for the album. Only 9 made the final cut. Songs like Carousel, Sunset Driver, and Got the Hots were left on the cutting room floor. Not because they were bad, but because they weren't Thriller-level extraordinary. Michael's process was obsessive. He'd record a vocal track, then record it again, and again, and again. Sometimes 20 takes, sometimes 50. He'd listen back, shake his head, and start over. It's not there yet, he'd say. His collaborators would insist the take was perfect. Michael would disagree, and Michael was always right. But the unreleased songs tell a different story than his public hits. They're raw, vulnerable, unpolished. They capture Michael in moments of pure experimentation, trying genres, testing boundaries, revealing emotions he'd never show on stage. A Place with No Name, circa 2001. A haunting, acoustic-driven track inspired by the classic song about a horse with no name. Michael's voice cracks with emotion as he sings about searching for peace, for a sanctuary where fame can't reach him. The song was never finished. Michael couldn't find the right ending. Or maybe he didn't want to, because the search for peace was his entire life, and that search had no resolution. Days in Gloucestershire, circa 1998. Recorded during Michael's stay in England, this track features Michael singing about simplicity, about wanting to disappear into the countryside and live as an ordinary man. The lyrics are devastating. If I could trade this crown for solitude, I'd give it all away. He never released it. Too honest, too real. She Was Lovin' Me, circa 1987. A funk-driven track recorded during the Bad Sessions. Michael's vocal performance is electrifying. Runs, ad-libs, screams. But there's pain underneath. The song is about a woman who loved him for who he was, not what he represented. In interviews, Michael admitted he wasn't sure that woman existed. So the song stayed locked away. Michael's unreleased vault also contains collaborations that never saw the light of day. Songs with Freddie Mercury, tracks with Whitney Houston, duets with his sister Janet that were deemed too powerful to release because they'd overshadow other projects. One of the most legendary unreleased songs is People of the World, circa 1998. Michael recorded it as a plea for global unity, environmental activism, and peace. The production was massive: orchestras, gospel choirs, a spoken word section narrated by Michael himself. But the song was never finished. Michael felt the world wasn't ready to hear it. Or maybe he felt the world didn't deserve it. Then there are the private recordings, the ones Michael never intended for public release. Michael had a habit of recording voice memos. Late at night, in hotel rooms, in his home studio, he'd grab a tape recorder and just talk. Sometimes he'd work through song ideas, beatboxing rhythms, humming melodies. Other times he'd confess his fears, his doubts, his loneliness. In one recording from 1993, made shortly after the first allegations surfaced, Michael can be heard crying, "Why do they hate me?" He asks, nobody in particular. "I just wanted to help people. I just wanted to make them happy." The tape cuts off abruptly. Michael never mentioned it again. These recordings are not available to the public. They're controlled by the Michael Jackson estate, locked away to protect Michael's legacy, or perhaps to protect the world from seeing how deeply he was suffering. But some recordings have leaked over the years, offering glimpses into Michael's creative mind. In 2010, a demo called Breaking News surfaced. Fans immediately questioned its authenticity. The voice didn't sound like Michael. The vibrato was off. The phrasing was wrong. A fierce debate erupted. Was this really Michael Jackson, or was it an impersonator? The estate insisted it was authentic, recorded during Michael's final years. Fans disagreed. Forensic musicologists were hired. Some said it was Michael. Others said it wasn't. To this day, the debate continues, and it raises a haunting question. If we can't even agree on what Michael Jackson's voice sounds like, did we ever really know him at all? Here's the tragedy. Michael Jackson spent 30 years recording his soul, and most of it will never be heard. The estate controls the vault. They release songs strategically. Posthumous albums like Michael, 2010, and Escape, 2014, featured new tracks, but fans know these weren't the real treasures. The real treasures remain locked away. Why? Because releasing unfinished Michael Jackson songs is a gamble. If they're not perfect, they damage his legacy. But if they're never released, the world loses access to Michael's most honest, most human moments. Michael once said in an interview, "I don't record songs for albums. I record songs for myself, to get the pain out, to understand what I'm feeling. If the world hears them, great, but that's not why I make them." This is the Michael Jackson the public never saw. Not the moonwalking, sequin-gloved icon, but the man alone in a studio at 3 a.m., pouring his heart into a song nobody would ever hear, because perfection was impossible and vulnerability was terrifying. June 25, 2009. Michael Jackson died, and with him died the only person who truly understood those unreleased songs, the only person who knew which ones were meant to be heard and which ones were meant to stay hidden. Today the vault remains sealed. Hundreds of songs, thousands of hours, a lifetime of creativity, pain, and genius, preserved but inaccessible. And so, Michael Jackson's final secret endures. The voice that changed the world was also the voice nobody heard. The voice that sang in empty studios, that cried into tape recorders, that whispered confessions into microphones he'd later unplug. That voice is still waiting, waiting to be understood, waiting to be heard, waiting for a world that might finally be ready to listen.